Hello there, my friends, and welcome to 15-Minute Free Thinking. My name is Carpo, and I'll be your host for this particular episode, unlike every other episode, which is hosted by my other self. The other self that remains elusive, the other self that remains a captive within his own mind. Oh, isn't that deep? Oh, listen to me rhyme. Let me back up for a minute here. When I make my podcasts, when I make my videos, when I make any type of content, as people call it, for the internet, I'm cautious, to be honest, to try to have integrity, to not bullshit people, to not put on a fake front and act like I'm doing something that I'm not. Now, I have a lot to cover in this podcast, and I'm hoping I could do it without faltering or having my camera die, which is my phone, or my, recorder. The point being, sometimes you have so much to say about a topic, it's difficult to know what you should bring to the discussion. That's why I, on my shelf here, have a bong, and I also have a cup of espresso, and even a beer. That is not promoting or suggesting anyone else should try any of these substances. They are highly volatile. I live in a kind of a joke within my mind that life is just about this almost Zen-like attitude that I have to carry with me, that everything's funny no matter what. I don't always put on the front that I feel this way. I don't always show this side of myself, but it's the side of myself that I really try to look at everything with. Shit happens type of attitude. Now, living in a world where everyone is different, there's a lot to talk about. And I don't like to talk about other people. There are enough issues we have to deal with ourselves, like mental health, like how we handle ourselves, our economy, build up our own lives. All most people want is just enough money to live comfortably and not have to worry about rent or gas prices, to not have to worry about sickness and death. But those things are going to be inevitable for most people. And, well, as far as the sickness and death, that's going to be inevitable for everyone. But the financial issues and the burdens, even if you correct that, we find new problems. But let's just back up for a minute here. I have a lot to say, and first I'd like to kind of explain where I'm coming from. This is a podcast that is intended to educate, to inform, to share my feelings about topics with people in a way that I don't want to knock anybody else's belief system. Even when I joke or talk about religion, I understand that religion has benefited a lot of people. And as long as they are not casting shadows on others because of their beliefs, I have no problem with it whatsoever. But there are, let me just say, millions of people preying on others, and that's all they do. For example, there are thieves who are opportunists who might steal something at a party or steal something at night when they're drunk. Like myself when I was a kid, steal a few statues from a plant store and a couple bonsais, one of which I still have actually, like 25 years later. But on the other hand, we have people who steal consistently, and that's all they do. Not even things they necessarily need. And this greed seeps in where they want more and more. And they're willing to harm others knowingly because they want a profit. And often I don't see very much difference between thieves like that and people who do, let's just say, daily talk shows on daily television. Daytime talk shows. That's the word I was looking for. Daytime talk shows on television. I don't and have not had cable. I do not watch it and have not had it in at least probably 12 years. But there are still people who watch cable programming. Think about the term programming. Not going to go there, though. television has always had ads and always had a way of luring people into believing that the world is a certain way. And I want to start with the 80s. I grew up in the 80s and the early 90s as a teenager. And back then, let's just say that we knew that television was fake. It was TV. That's what it was. The closest we had to reality TV was perhaps game shows, right? We knew that what we were watching was fictional. But as time went on, you go into the 2000s, you have shows like, the survival shows. You have things like The Real World and Storage Wars. You move on down the lines. You have the Housewives of the Moon or Mars or whoever, and various singing competitions. It's taken a decade or more for people to finally come out and admit that these shows were all faked, that it was all set up, that it was all staged. And I'm starting with this because I think it's a great look into how Hollywood operates and the idea that even when you try to be real and you try to be honest, people are just willing to completely bullshit others because it's profitable. So when it comes to shows like The Housewives or any of these other shows, it doesn't matter to me. I don't care that they do that. If people want to watch it, it's entertainment. So be it. But let's talk about Dr. Phil. Or Deepak Chopra, if you're not familiar with him, who is a Indian guru / Ayurvedic doctor who believes that, quantum healing is his thing. And it means basically nothing. He uses a lot of big words and joins a lot of groups. I mean, the guy has plenty of videos made about him, talking about him. I'm not here to talk about specific people, but rather the sake of, this is why it bothers me and this is why I'm talking about it. Not because people are out listening to bullshit, where even reality TV or modern day internet celebrities are completely faking their lives and faking their whole situations, but rather the fact that people believe it when they're telling them that Dr. Phil, for example, insulting people who have mental health issues. There are so many examples, and it's hard for me to tackle them here because I'm not here to talk about specific people. But for example, one girl was saying she thought she was insane, and Dr. Phil said, "You're not insane. Insane people eat rocks and bark at the moon." This is a type of ignorance that goes beyond ignorance. But a lot of people don't realize that Dr. Phil hasn't had a license to be a doctor since 2006, 15 years ago. But he's had a show for the last 21 years, going on 22. And he always picks the people with the most controversy. It's like a kind of more mild Jerry Springer, if you will. And I grew up with Jerry Springer, and that's what I was going to say about the 80s. That was the one show that really started this, the reality show of people screaming at each other and playing kind of a part in a game. It's entertaining for a lot of people, but also it's detrimental to the mental health of people who think that that's how real people act. And that's the problem I have with Dr. Phil. That's also the problem I have with many of these people. Dr. Phil once had on a girl who was this black girl who claimed that she thought she was white and she was racist against other black people and she wanted to join the KKK. It was revealed later that it was all a hoax and she just wanted to get viral attention. Did Dr. Phil know that? Who knows? But can you not do enough digging to realize when a person is completely full of shit? What kind of a illusion do you want to put on? Because people will go out and talk about these things, and they will think that this is how the world is. There's cheater shows, reality shows, where it's just fake cheaters. There's no real cheating going on. By the way, Dr. Phil made $79 million a year, and I think last year, from what I looked up. I do a little bit of research for these, okay? I don't just sit around and just talk to the microphone and camera, although that's really what I try to pride myself on. For my podcasts, I want to be able to just talk raw without editing. I don't ever edit or jump cut or jump to the next part. I talk about things in a way that I feel carries the truth and the weight of what I know. Not just, reading sound bites and then just repeating them back to a microphone. And I hope that comes across properly. But the mental health issue is why I have a problem. He totally demeans mental health and doesn't understand it, even though he claims to be a psychologist. Dr. Phil is a complete fraud, and I think he's a piece of shit, personally. And that's my opinion. But he's not the only one. You know, there's a guy named John Edward, and if you're not familiar with him, he's the psychic who claims to talk to dead loved ones, and this became popular when I was a teenager as well. I started hearing about this guy who could channel the dead and talk to people in his audience and claim, oh, somebody has a dead grandma, their name starts with a G. Since then, many people have learned about cold reading techniques and understand how psychics operate on a mass scale. But let me just stop for a minute and say, the real crux of my discussion here, the real point I guess I need to make about people believing stupid shit, and what I've realized is that people want to. They want to believe things that aren't true, and they will fight to the end of time to defend that right to believe in bullshit. This seems obvious, but it's something that I've really come to terms with in the last, say, 5 years of my life discussing things with people. Many people want to find the truth, but they don't really know why. Many people don't want to find the truth. They just want to believe what they want to believe. And many people, like, for example, if I were to find myself, I'm open to the truth, but I don't draw conclusions until I'm sure. I guess I'm a science-oriented person. I'm a show-me type person. It doesn't mean that I don't believe in aliens or Bigfoot or anything else. It's just, hey, when I see it, I see it. Because people seem very untrustworthy, a lot more so than I thought when I was younger. And it's sad. But John Edward, for example, to finish that one up, he sets up these false premises about knowing somebody's dead loved one, and he gives them hope that this person says, oh, they want to wish you well, and they say they're sorry about whatever may have happened between you. Millions of people sit around and watch these shows and believe these people and cheer, and they get emotional from it. And I step back and think, maybe that's okay, right? Who am I to tell people that they shouldn't try to contact their dead loved ones? I sound like a complete asshole for even bringing that up to some people. But in my true heart of hearts, I don't believe that. I believe that it's important for people to be intellectual and honest enough to be able to look at themselves and say, look, your loved ones are gone. This person does not channel them. They are not special. There are no gurus. There are no teachers that are impervious to flaws and failure. And that's what we have to realize. Even if a person has awareness beyond our comprehension, even I, who do a lot of research on these things, I try to look into many of these ancient philosophies and Middle Eastern religions and philosophy, I don't understand half the shit that I read. And then I see people who are reciting and repeating the things that I've read as if they know what it means, but just completely spouting bullshit to people. And that's where I get to the liars. They give you, the problem with this is that many of these, whether it's TV shows or fake gurus, they give people a false idea of how people really act. Because most people aren't that way. And most people aren't that ignorant. But enough people are to make a great clientele. It's the way that a lot of the shows are edited to make it look like everybody's fighting, for example. A lot of the reality shows where they always want to create conflict, right? I've even heard on Dr. Phil, one guy, he said that he was trying to get clean and sober, and when he got to his room, they gave him a Xanax to relax before the show. He'd never had one before. And then when he got to his other room, there were like 2 quarts of vodka in the room. They knew he had an alcohol problem. Well, of course, he drank the vodka, and he'd taken a Xanax, and he came out acting like a fool. And the idea is, of course, give the people their drug of choice, make them look like a fool, do it for TV, get a few bucks. I may be kind of over-focusing on this whole Dr. Phil thing, but to me it's a perfect example of the problem. This guy's been around for almost 22 years making these garbage TV shows, and millions of people watch it. Millions of people believe that this guy is a doctor and cares about his patients. A scarier thing than admitting he probably doesn't is the fact that he's probably a sociopath, and he might think he cares. He might actually believe the bullshit he's spouting. But we ain't even gotten started yet. Anything for money is kind of the theme of this video. For a lot of people, that's what they do. And I don't honestly give too much of a fuck about money. If my integrity is compromised by something I say, then I just, I'd rather not say it. But if I say what I mean, then my integrity is never compromised. And I feel like I don't know the truth, but I know enough of my own truth to not fall for somebody else's bullshit. And I'm only here to try to save people from others' bullshit. Do your own research. All the people I talked about, the types of people, the guru types, this also falls in line with evangelists. Those who are preaching to you, what they call the prosperity gospel. They call it seed planting. Plant a seed, and that money comes back to you. And people send money to churches. Old ladies send their last paychecks to these people. These people will sit on live television on these TV shows at like midnight and say, if you just send your money, God will thank you and multiply your money. And they'll say this on live TV to old people. They don't get shut down. It's just a complete scam. And these people make everyone look bad. But the fact this exists and has existed for so long shows a very disgusting side of society, that people are willing to use hope to lasso others into their will. And that to me is disgusting. It seems like a lot of these folks have really no empathy, but maybe it's even worse. Not sociopaths, but psychopaths. It's like they're clueless about people's real needs or don't care. And meanwhile, people are flocking to them to get a reading or a psychological opinion from these people because they're, quote, celebrities. And exploiting emotions is really what these shows are about when it comes to television. But this has also extended into the internet realm. It's become so much worse. These healers and experts, people who claim to be Reiki healers. And look, I want to make this very clear. I know I will guaranteed offend someone in this by talking shit about Reiki and crystal healing. Look, I've done a shitload of research on energy healing. I've meditated. I've looked into crystals, what they are, the lattice structure of the crystal itself, tried to understand the claims people make about rose quartz in different colors, then considered the human eye and how really some people don't even see it as rose, right? We have some animals don't see color, so why does color have anything to do with the power of a crystal if the lattice structure is the same? And I'd go through all these different ideas and realize that pretty much the entire spiritual community, if you want to call it that, is totally full of shit. And they're trying to sell you the same thing. Hope. Through crystals and lotions and smells and different oils. It comes down to even the doTERRA essential oils. I'm a huge essential oil supporter, but these people make claims that are so preposterous, they just make me want to puke. The thing is, the real healer is yourself. The old saying, caveat emptor, Latin for buyer beware, means watch out. Make sure you're not buying shit from other people because they're making a claim to you and exploiting your emotions in order to pretend that they're a healer and that they know what you need. And there's a guy, Anthony William, I believe is his name, and he's a guy who has become very popular, multimillionaire, by claiming everyone needs to drink celery juice, but not watered down celery juice, not 10 ounces or 20 ounces, but only specifically 16 ounces of celery juice, with nothing else with it, before or after, is the only cure for all your ailments. This is kind of a common story that goes along with so many of these fraudsters, who, in my opinion anyway, are totally defrauding an entire, millions of people out of their money by pretending they know what's best. In the end, people will ask you for money. They want you to buy their book. Most people have an underlying motive. I guess that's the beauty. I do ask people, if you can support my channel, go to Patreon. If you can't, don't. I don't have anything to sell you. You know, that's the thing. I really like to be able to talk the way I want to talk to people without feeling like I'm just trying to sell you some bullshit course. And don't even get me started on the prices. Some of these, quote, healers and people who claim that they've had this enlightenment and been told from God, and they're charging $500 for a 15-minute consultation on the phone. It's not just that they're charging that much, it's that people are willing to pay for it. There's a guy named Tom Palladino who started this scalar energy claim that I came across online somewhere, and I've been following him for several years. Basically, every comment I leave is just like, prove it, you know, because he's cut me off from discussion because I asked him how it worked. He's claiming you send him a picture of yourself and he heals you through scalar energy. It's like, how does this work? But it's me against the world, because many people want to believe this shit. They really do. And those believers, if you dare to question their guru, they will call you a shill for the pharmaceutical industry, right? Because you're just against alternative medicine. Or they'll call you an atheist if you're against their particular spiritual beliefs. Or they'll call you a hater, whatever it might be. And it's hard to even describe that. I'm so anti-pharma in a certain way, but also pro-pharma in the way that I don't want people selling you quackery, and understand why. We have made certain rules and laws to prevent people from selling bullshit. But sometimes they're not strong enough, and sometimes they're too strong. And that's why I distrust gurus and celebrities. That's why I feel like we really need to learn to trust ourselves. Because people are desperate, and they will believe anything. If you really have a gift, if you really are hearing from God and you're the only one that can create these amazing discoveries, like some of these false gurus, for example, why not give it away for free? If you give away your services for free, then it comes tenfold, right? I don't know how to discuss the topic without realizing that many people want to be fooled, and that it gives them a certain comfort. And therefore, who am I to say they should think any differently? Because as I said at the beginning, I'm just one human. I don't know what's best for other people. I just know what works for me. But I do understand that there's a common thread, the cult of personality. A cult of personality will allow people to defend somebody who is monstrous, who has done horrendous things. I guess Hitler came to mind, but I could think of worse. Honestly, I could. There are some horrendous leaders in history, and people are willing to do anything for somebody they admire. Just look at the Jonestown massacre, for example. I mean, people are willing to kill themselves and their kids because somebody said, hey, you should. I mean, I understand that humans are very easily swayed. So as a human who is very skeptical, I feel like whenever I try to inform other people, hey, be skeptical, they want to shut me down because they want to believe what they want to believe. And that's kind of a scary proposition. You realize history has always been this way. And then you start to look back at prophets, or so-called prophets. And prophets and prophets go hand in hand. They are usually just egotistical con men today. Anybody who calls themselves a prophet today is called a con man. But why would it be any different 1,000 years ago? Think about it. Some broke guy 500 years ago could say he was a prophet, say some things that really sounded good, and people would believe him. And he'd go down in history as this great prophet. Maybe he made a good gamble, on a certain choice. Let's go over here. Oh, we found water. This guy knows it. He's talking to God. People will believe anything. And it's important, I think, that we believe in ourselves. And that sounds cheesy, but damn it, we believe in other people too much. I've fallen for a lot of this crap. You remember the book The Secret? It was originally promoted by none other than Oprah Winfrey. And I remember hearing about it and thinking, wow, if you just project positivity and you put intention to the universe, you can get whatever you want. Now look, I still believe that a lot of this is true, but only because we push ourselves to get these things. You don't just post up a picture of a mansion and say, oh, I'll have this, and in 5 years you have the mansion. It was bullshit. It's all bullshit to sell books. Deepak Chopra was also on her show, and he's totally full of shit too. He wants to sell you all kinds of books and crap. But also, Dr. Phil got his start also on Oprah Winfrey. And years ago, decades ago, Oprah didn't seem that bad, even to my young self. Like, oh, she's all right. She's trying to empower women. That's a good thing. And then I started hearing about the bullshit people that were coming out of her show thinking, wow, that's really messed up. And The Secret, the book, is like a running joke now, right? And I think back to when I was sitting in my car thinking, I'm going to think positive and put out positive to the world and it'll come back to me. Then some guy flips me off, right? Not literally, but the real world creeps back in. No matter what type of spiritual understanding you think you have about the world, your world will change and your life will change and you will think differently. And so embracing change is the key. Embracing change with grace is what allows you to have a Zen-like look at life without being upset by change, because change is important. Alternative knowledge sells well. Talking about the Illuminati, talking about alternative medicine, and all I can say is that it's everywhere, and bullshit is everywhere, and I want to say thank God for real people. A lot of these fake gurus have $7,000 retreats, go out and sit with them in the woods barefoot. It's no different than multi-level marketing, in my opinion. Just giving people the hope that they're going to develop some great truth in their lives if they just start and do this one thing. And I know that a lot of people will call people closed-minded for asking for evidence. That's totally understandable. It's almost like a religion. People who follow an individual, even if it's, for example, Elon Musk. I made a comment about him the other day, and a lot of people stand by him. I think he's a douchebag. I could give you dozens of reasons why, but it doesn't matter because the people that like him, and that's fine. But the people who do support a lot of celebrities and famous people and gurus tend to do it almost like a cult of personality and literally will defend them by saying horrendous things to people who don't like the person, as if they're taking a personal insult to your disliking that person. And so the gurus don't know you as well as you know you. And we need to take it upon ourselves. It's the why I haven't finished any of my books that I've started, because I don't feel like I've earned it yet. I'm still young. I'm trying to be reasonable. I'm not the kind of person who wants people's money. And the more I look around, the more I see others who just seem to want people's money. The one key and a good way to identify these type of people is they really can't take criticism. They will only have positive comments on all of their videos and all of their reviews. They don't allow honesty. They tend to be some of the most thin-skinned people out there. And they are more than willing to try to explain their discussions and their beliefs without any facts or logic. And that should be a red flag. If a person says they have the only way to truth, that should be a red flag. And these people, whoever they believe, whatever they believe, should be able to treat others with dignity and respect, regardless of what they believe, and just say, I disagree with you. My only gripe with other people is that they are harming others, and a lot of the folks, when you call them out, have a persecution complex, as if, oh, it's just the mainstream, they're trying to attack us, even though it's actually the alternative, medicine that's attacking some of these other alternative medicine people because they're putting out bullshit and people believe it. So a lot of these companies, they also use mistrust to keep people trusting them. So be aware. Don't believe the bullshit. Don't believe the hype. And that's the end of my podcast. Thank you for listening. I'm out of time for my video version, so I'm going to turn that off now, or whenever it shuts off. Actually, the video version will cut off at around 30 minutes, probably right in the middle of my discussion. But I have more to say for the podcast version, for those of you who downloaded it. And you can also find it on all the podcast platforms. Doctors, science, quantum formulas, quantum entanglement, These are some of the terms people will think of when they think of expertise. A scientist understands these quantum terms. The truth is they really don't. And we don't understand the quantum world. Well, the irony here is that many of these alternative gurus and alternative medicine people, such as Deepak Chopra, for example, he labels himself as a doctor, and he uses the word quantum a lot in his discussions. Yet a lot of people who believe in alternative medicine also dismiss science and mainstream doctors as being part of the problem. Yet they will believe their own mainstream doctor, who is also profiteering on them, and who, basically dresses like a businessman because he's written a couple of books. And people are willing to believe whatever they hear. And I don't know what to do about this except to realize that when people are honest, I think it's the most beautiful thing. Treating others with dignity and respect and not being harmful to other people. That's why it amazes me that a guy like Dr. Phil can spend 20 years making a show that basically just ridicules people. Anyway, I've rambled enough. I appreciate you all coming to my podcast. Thanks for listening. And I think I'll read this little outro that I had made up like a year ago. Thanks for listening. This podcast is free for everyone to download and listen to. I do not have any ads or paywalls or sponsors. It is fully supported by donations through Patreon or PayPal. Patrons have access to the video versions of many podcasts as well as the various blogs and writings I share. To visit, go to patreon.com/carpo719. I do all of my own research, writing, editing, and producing, so it takes a bit of time. But I try to upload a new episode each week. Side note, I try. I appreciate all of your contributions to my efforts, both financially and as well as the wonderful comments people leave. So thank you for coming along and listening, and I hope you'll join me for future podcasts, whoever you are, and wherever you are. Have yourselves a wonderful day, and take care of each other. Over and out.